In this video, we are going to discuss Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince with three important topics. One is principalities, other one is human nature, which is explained in The Prince, and the last one is comparisons or metaphors related to fox and lion. So, these three topics are very important in studying or understanding Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince. The Prince is a 16th century political treatise written by Italian diplomat and political theorist Niccolo Machiavelli as an instruction guide for the new princes and royals. This was dedicated to Lorenzo de' Medici, who was the ruler of Florence from 1516 until his death in 1519. The book is Machiavelli's advice to Lorenzo on how to stay in power. Machiavelli is in direct opposition to a moralistic theory of politics. He presents to his readers a vision of political rule based on corruption and manipulation. He argues that a ruler should do everything possible to preserve himself in power. The treatise is one of the most important of Machiavelli's works and the one most responsible for bringing the word Machiavellian into usage. In his treatise, Machiavelli identifies two types of states or dominions that hold power over men, that are republics and principalities. In The Prince, Machiavelli focuses on how principalities can be acquired, governed, and preserved. He identifies four main types of principalities, that are hereditary, new, mixed, and ecclesiastical. So let's look at what is meant by hereditary principality. The hereditary principality passes down power through a ruling family. So according to Machiavelli, it is easier to govern a hereditary state than a new principality. Those under the rule of such hereditary states are familiar with the prince's family and are therefore accustomed to their rule. The hereditary prince only has to keep past institutions intact while adapting these institutions to current events. The natural disposition of subjects in a hereditary state is to love the ruling family. So, unless the prince commits some horrible act against his people, his subjects will prefer a traditional ruler to a new one. Even if a strong outsider succeeds in conquering a prince's hereditary state, any setback the outsider encounters will allow the prince to reconquer the state. Then let's look at mixed principalities. Mixed principalities are countries comprised of both the prince's original holdings and new territories he has taken over. According to Machiavelli, maintaining a new principality is more difficult than maintaining a hereditary state because the residents expect a new ruler to be better than the one before. This expectation of improvement will induce people to take up arms against any relatively unestablished prince. Furthermore, when a prince takes over another prince's domain, he finds himself in a tricky situation with regard to the people who put him in power. He cannot maintain the support of these people as he cannot fulfill all of their expectations, but he also cannot deal too harshly with them as he is in their debt. So immediately after taking power, the prince is in danger of losing his newly gained principality. It is easier to hold on to power in a rebellious territory the second time around because the reinstated prince can use the rebellion as an excuse to implement stricter rule. So it is much easier to maintain control over a new principality if the people share the same language and customs as the prince's own country. In this case, the prince has to do only two things. One, destroy the family of the former prince, or maintain the principality's laws and taxes. One of the prince's most effective options is to take up residence in the new state. Another effective method of dealing with linguistic and cultural differences is to establish colonies in the new state. A prince should injure people only if he knows there is no threat of revenge. He must be aware of protecting his weaker neighbors and weakening the powerful ones. The prince must remain master of the whole country to keep control of the state he has conquered. He should always act to solve problems before problems fully manifest themselves. Political disorders are easy to solve if the prince identifies them and acts early. So, here Machiavelli examines the case of King Louis XII of France, who invaded Italy in 1489 with respect to mixed principalities. So, here he is dealing with mixed principalities. Then, coming to new principalities are either completely new or new appendages to existing states. They are created through military or civil acquisition. One way that rulers acquire states is through their own abilities rather than the good fortune of noble birth, inheritance, or lucky circumstances. Rulers who rely on their ability instead of fortune are generally more successful in holding power over states because they can meet the challenge of establishing a new order. Examples of rulers who triumphed on the strength of their own powers include Moses, Romulus, and Theseus. Sometimes private citizens become princes purely by good fortune. Such people buy their way into power, receive favors from someone else in power, or bribe soldiers. Such princes are weak because they do not know how to maintain their position. They do not have loyal troops who are devoted to them. They do not know how to deal with problems, command troops, or keep their power in the face of opposition. So, laying a solid foundation is a crucial prerequisite for maintaining power. A prince must eliminate rival leaders and win the favor of their followers. Machiavelli cites the life of Caesar Borgia as an example. He was made Duke of Romagna through the good fortune of his father as Pope Alexander VI. So, those who come to power by crime are treacherous, pitiless, and irreligious. So, princes who commit criminal acts can achieve power but never glory. Therefore, when a prince decides to seize his estate, he must determine how much injury to inflict. The other way a prince can come to power is through the favor of his fellow citizens. Princes who rise through this road are heads of what Machiavelli calls constitutional principalities. So, Machiavelli stresses the importance of keeping the goodwill of the people because they are crucial in times of trouble. So, this is all the way when a new principality can establish according to Machiavelli. Coming to ecclesiastical principalities, they are different from other kinds of principalities. In addressing the ecclesiastical principalities, Machiavelli is referring mainly to the church and its main position of authority, the papacy. Among the princes, the ecclesiastical prince is only one who, once in power, does not have to defend his power because it is rooted in the ancient traditions of religion. It is useful, however, to look at how the church has obtained its great temporal power. Popes Alexander VI and Julius II greatly increased the power of the church by using armed force to weaken the other factions, accumulating wealth to strengthen the church's own position, and nurturing factionalism within any remaining factions. Thus, the current church, under the leadership of Pope Leo X, has been made strong through the force of arms. So, these are the incidents happened when Machiavelli wrote this treatise. So, he is suggesting how an ecclesiastical principalities get into power. So these are the four main principalities according to Machiavelli. So coming to another topic, that is human nature and the prince. According to Machiavelli, human nature is completely selfish and full of ego, and that they always think about their own self-interest, like the masses desire safety and security and the ruler wants power, and that they are very selfish to gain and conquer their motives. Machiavelli says, I quote, men are ungrateful, fickle, deceitful, cowardly, and avaricious. End quote. From this, it sums up to the conclusion that a ruler or a monarch should aim rather to be feared than to be loved. The human desires are insatiable because they want to have everything and do everything, while fortune limits their possessions and capacity of enjoyment. Machiavelli portrays a frustrating picture of human nature, that is, man is selfish and power hungry. Machiavelli fails to recognize the importance of social values and people's allegiance to these. To him, people of his time were guided by materialistic considerations and not by moral and ethical principles. Machiavelli has described humans as bad, evil, selfish, egoistic and depraved. Human wants has no particular limit. They are greedy, sensual creature, mean, bad and depraved, and he even goes on to saying that a human being only cares for himself, their family and their property, and to conquer this, they are ready to do anything, even to the extent of forgiving their enemy. He even says that in order to safeguard their priorities, they can even forgive the murder of their father or any kin for that matter than the seizure of his property or any harm to himself. Humans love themselves first and then think about other things, and that they are not law abiding citizens. So, according to Machiavelli, humans use the state and the government for their own selfish reason, profit, and protection. They immediately start disliking or hating the thing that they can't achieve or is difficult to achieve or is out of their reach, and will deliberately tend to avoid or delay it. Machiavelli also says that humans by nature are wicked and aggressive. He believes that human beings are insatisfiable and mean by nature. Humans are full of desires. So Machiavelli's view and point of human nature was very materialistic. He had rejected the turned down the ideologies of Greek philosophers Aristotle and Plato, who said that the state aims to make the people virtuous and good. He also dismisses the idea that existed in the medieval ages. At the end of state is to smooth the way of a man to eternal salvation. So here, Machiavelli discarded everything related to moral and ethical principles, but he is continuously or repeatedly suggesting that human beings are selfish and aggressive and self-motivated. Coming to the last topic, that is comparisons or metaphors related with fox and lion. According to Machiavelli, I quote, "It is therefore necessary to be fox in order to recognize the traps, and lion in order to frighten the wolves." End quote. This is because a lion cannot defend itself from the traps and the fox cannot protect itself from wolves. So, here he uses tactics in where strong animals are used as metaphors. Machiavelli's advice is to act according to the beast. It is necessary to have recourse, can't fight legally at all time. So, we should be beast. And he says princes may have many traps, so be a fox to know the trap. And as he says that men are ungrateful, fickle, deceitful, cowardly, and avaricious. So in order to stay in power, be a lion to frighten the wolves. So here the image of the lion that Machiavelli aims to convey that can predominantly be seen as the representation of the qualities of strength and respect, which is what the lion was linked to his time. The most obvious physical trait representative of a lion would be the willingness to be war-wise. Another trait of the Machiavellian lion is to possess the image of bravery expected of from a successful prince. This is important in Machiavelli's view, as he explains that power cannot be maintained unless such an image is conveyed, as otherwise a prince would be unable to command the respect of those under his domain, not least those in the military force. So, the fundamental trait of a Machiavellian lion is the notion that it is preferable for a leader to be feared as opposed to being loved when one of the two is to be lacked. The same way the lion in the animal kingdom is usually depicted as the one animal all the others fear the most. The image of the fox that Machiavelli generates is one of careful cunningness and deception. The first trait of a fox is to consider as the idea that a successful prince should be prepared to be flexible when it comes to keeping his word. Machiavelli expresses that while the nobility of prince that keep the word is in no doubt, his experience shows that a successful prince who maintains their power for a lengthy period of time cared little for keeping their word and ultimately surpassed the achievements of those princes more predisposed by honesty. So, a Machiavellian fox also has the ability to be observant and selective of the people surrounding him. An important aspect of the Machiavellian force is the prudent way of handling the influence of fortune. Machiavelli acknowledges that fortune is out of a prince's control. He affirms that a successful prince must proactively adjust to the time and circumstances, despite the natural course of action being to stay on the course that past success were built upon. So it's clear that here Machiavelli uses both the strong animals, that is, lion and fox, in order to show or metaphor the qualities which is needed for a strong prince.